You are good to go.
All right, thank you very much. Well, good morning and welcome to the East Bay Regional Park District's Board Executive Committee meeting on October 4th. We're beginning today at 11:14. Welcome all. Deborah, would you call roll, please?
Yes, Director Eccles.
Present.
Director Coffey.
Present.
Director Waspy.
Here.
Park District staff coordinators in this meeting are Acting General Manager, DGM, Dr. Alan Alvarez. Today's meeting is held pursuant to the Brown Act. We are providing live audio and video streaming. Members of the public wishing to make a public comment can do so, 1, live via Zoom, 2, by submitting an email, or 3, leaving a voicemail. This information is noted on the agenda. If there are no questions about the meeting procedures, we will begin.
All right, we'll begin our meeting. There are no minutes, so we'll move on to public comments. Are there any public comments?
No public comments.
Well, I have a hand up. Let's go to Kelly. Go ahead, Kelly.
Okay, thank you. Elected leaders and staff have openly asked for several years about removing or relocating the iconic Mission Peak Summit pole. Their apologists have been whispering in the ears of the Fremont City Council to defend the Mission Peak pole vandals. Now, how would these apologists defend the tree cutters in England? Those apologists would say that people need to chop down those trees because they're an attractive nuisance, bringing unwanted fame and drawing hordes of tourists to the idyllic countryside of Northeast England. The apologists would say that locals need to harvest wood for furniture, firewood, musical instruments, wooden shipbuilding, and housing. On the other hand, a great many English people like to hug trees. They respect nature, and they celebrate their centuries-old cultural monuments. The press in England doesn't give equal weight to both sides of the tree cutting issue. They don't present both sides of the story. The press writes about the vast majority of the English public who seem to be avid tree huggers. The English people respect nature and they celebrate their centuries-old cultural monuments. Our politicians here in Fremont and the directors of the Park District ought to serve the East Bay and the entire Bay Area community. This board of directors and the city council should stop listening to the apologists for the Mission Peak vandals. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is why we put the poll back up yesterday. To much fanfare, I might add. You know what? I kind of made an error here. Elizabeth, are you familiar with the mantra that you have to repeat when you're commuting or telecommuting from home? I could read it for you, or the circumstances.
Yes. No, you read it for me. I'm
okay. Director Eccles is participating from home due to an illness in her family. There is no one 18 years of age or older present in your room, I suspect. And you are alone in your room. So thank you and welcome to our meeting remotely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Apologize for that I missed that. All right, our informational items today are a review of the 2024 Board Master Calendar.
Yes, thank you so much, President Waspy, board members, and staff. The item before you, if I can have presentation pull up, that would be great. It comes as a request from President Waspy, and in response to the feedback that we received in your annual retreat this year, in terms of how we schedule and when we schedule, and all the commitments that we have in front of you, so that you can fulfill your roles as elected official. I should also like to, in context, give you a little bit of background that we went ahead at the direction, next slide, at the direction of General Manager Landreth, work with the executive team and gather and put forth in front of you a 2024 Board Master Calendar. So here's what the year can look like. And I should say that the draft that you see in front of you, we're looking for your feedback today. And we want to walk you through some of the building elements and how we brought all those pieces together And the draft before you also comes from contributions made by both President Waspi as well as incoming board president Echo and General Manager Landreth. Here you see a year in a glance, providing us with an overview of the entire year, making it easy to identify important dates and events. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. So here you see a year at a glance, providing us with an overview of the entire year, making it easy to identify important dates and events at a glance. It helps us to see high-level view of what the year might look like coming up in 2024. It's important to note that, like I said, in building the year, we were making every effort to be responsive to the feedback that we received at your retreat. We are and continue to be in adherence with the board operating guidelines, as well as what we're presenting here today maintains those preferred scheduling practices that have been adopted over the years by our board, as well as introduces new scheduling practices for added flexibility, and it brings greater flexibility overall. So moving on to the next slide. I'd like to start with the board meetings, and our board meetings will continue to take place on the first and third Tuesday of the month for the board operating guidelines. We will have only one meeting in January, as we have done in the past, as well as we will continue to host one meeting of the board of directors in East Contra Costa County in the month of June. And we are building in a break for the month of August, as we have done in the past. And we are keeping one evening public hearing on our budget in the month of December. What's a little bit different here that I would like to note is that while we're meeting 21 times in 2024, we are taking a full break in the month of August. In previous years, we would only have one meeting, but after much discussions and consideration, it was important to truly break for the month of August. And it still allows us to meet the 21 times out of 24 for the year, possible 24. Next slide. And then in terms of introducing new scheduling practices, I want to share a little bit with you in terms of we're introducing, as we're gathering all these potential options on how we can meet and where we can meet, we introduce new terminology to be consistent with the public sector. For instance, we are now referring to this document as the board master calendar, where before it was referred to as board meetings and committee meetings. And also we're referring to board site visits, where in the past we were referring to those types of activities as board tours or board field trips. And changing the terminology to board site visits allows us to be in alignment with our delegation at the state and federal level, because in essence, that's what we're doing. And then I also want to give you a little bit of background in terms of how we compile some of these new scheduling practices that we're proposing. We actually went back and did an analysis going back to 10 years and put together a histogram to understand what were the patterns of how the board directors met for the 5 board committee meetings. And we found that the meetings were all throughout the week. We were actually hosting meetings pretty much every day of the week, with some exceptions on Mondays. And so we wanted to build in greater flexibility to be able to add capacity by consolidating the board committees to Tuesdays and Wednesdays, which this calendar does. And in doing so, allows us to create for a much better experience, because in releasing Fridays and Thursdays and some of the Mondays, we're able to build in additional commitments that are needed in alignment with our delegation, which you'll see in a minute. In looking at the 5 board committee meetings, you will see that we truly took a break in the month of August. So there are no meetings for the month of August. And in conferring with the executive team, we feel that we're able to bring all of the planned work and the potential items forward in 11 months. So it aligns with our budget planning, it aligns with our land use, potential acquisitions, as well as what would be happening in operation. And it also, this proposed calendar integrates additional, it does integrate proactively additional annual commitments for a balanced experience for the board members and staff as well. For instance, in understanding the frequency and when we meet, we were able to balance as we wove into the calendar, the 5 board study sessions, as well as the annual retreat, as well as the board site visits. And it also integrates the conferences for 2024 that are being hosted by external agencies that traditionally some of our board members have liked to participate. In terms of enhanced capacity, I do want to mention that we're releasing Fridays for board site visits, but also to add capacity to create additional space for the Park District, our government and legislative affairs teams, for them to be able to host additional site visits from our state and federal delegation on our public lands that we steward. So Fridays are often the best days of the week when our different delegation representatives are out in their respective districts. Next slide. And then I'd like to take a moment to spotlight the full board events other than the regular board meetings. We are building in the annual board retreat in the month of January, 5 study sessions in alignment with the budget planning process on the designated first Fridays of the month. Here are all the dates in advance so you can plan accordingly so that we're not shuffling in January, February, or in real time to find a date in your personal calendars when these study sessions will take place. And they're paced accordingly with the executive team in terms of the work that will be brought forward. And then also we're adding or building in 5 board site visits, also previously known as board tours or board field trips on designated Fridays. And I have to say that from the time that we published this calendar and today, and I appreciate the good eyes of operations, we were able to resolve for one more conflict. And so there will be no planned board site visit in the month of May, but rather we're moving that to October the 18th. So we'll update the calendar for you to build in that change and also in response to the feedback that we might hear here today.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we're not holding a board site visit as we had originally wanted to in May 17th. We're moving it to October the 18th, and we will be publishing a new updated calendar with the revisions, with that revision, as well as any other feedback that we might hear here today. Next slide. I would like to also take a moment to highlight or spotlight the annual events. You will see that we have 12 annual events that we have identified, including the Park District's advocacy conferences with our delegation in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. Here are the dates way in advance so you can plan accordingly with your families in your personal calendars. And also we're introducing the 2 events with the League of Cities for elected officials with the anticipation. This is a new events that have never been on your calendar before. And I wanted to integrate them because it allows an opportunity for our elected officials for you to join with the mayors and councils from across our 33 cities within our jurisdiction. Those events are intended for elected officials of cities. These events are also open to special districts, and some special districts do participate because it's a great opportunity to mingle with the mayors and city council members. And since our jurisdiction, we deal and work with 33 cities. I thought that you might want to know when those events are taking place, if you would like to consider those as you plan your year for 2024. And also this calendar proactively resolves for scheduling conflicts with the annual conferences for elected officials. It doesn't resolve for all of the conflicts, but most of the conflicts, I should say. And it does maintain the top 3 park industry staff events that in the past our elected officials have joined us and partnered with us in attending to those staff industry events, such as the National Recreation and Parks Association Annual Conference or the California Parks and Recreation Society's Annual Conference, to name a few. Next slide. Oh, that's it. So that's the calendar. We also have the 2 committees that are called out as part of the ASME Local 2428 committees, the Workforce Diversity Committee, as well as the Ecology Committee. Those are really tentative dates. We couldn't firm them up until we have an opportunity to meet with our organized labor partners. So those will be confirmed hopefully before the end of the year. So I'm looking for feedback, comments, or questions.
I think you'll get them in just a moment. Elizabeth, did you have anything? Can't see Elizabeth.
I did just have one question at this point. I wasn't clear what is the green conference date? What is that's noted here?
It's making the asterisk or the footnote is making reference to the color green. And so when you see the dates and it's shaded by green, it means that there's a conflict with one of the annual.
Okay. Okay, I see. So, okay, it's green. I see. It's green because gotcha. Okay. I was wondering, I thought we were adding some new green conferences or something, which would be great. So, okay. Thank you. Thank you. I might have other questions, but I'll let Colin go if he has some questions.
So you're saying that the green highlight indicates that there's some conference that conflicts with that meeting?
Correct.
Oh, okay. You're not alone, Elizabeth. I wasn't getting
Oh,
that.
good. Okay, good.
I thought there was green conferences every month somewhere.
Yeah, I was wondering. I don't know. The only thing that jumps out to me, and I'll just share it with my colleagues on the committee, is I continue to, I guess, just openly disagree with the general manager about the priority setting sessions. I think from the beginning of her tenure, I favored continuing to have those sessions in February and March, early in the year. But I think I've lost that battle. So, and am happy to concede it unless others, either on the committee or the board, agree. My feeling on it was that I certainly don't, and I don't sense that other board members believe that our priority setting or goals that we set forth are tied to the budget. And the rationale I was told for moving the priority setting sessions to later in the year was so that they would be closer to budget making time and serve to inform the budget. And so I guess the fundamental disagreement I had was, since we changed, was to the extent to which we view those priority and goal setting sessions as informing that year's budget. I think, as I've suggested, I view it as, how do we get projects or goals on the table and get them discussed and get staff thinking about them, regardless of where they land in the budget process, because some of them aren't budgeted. I do, however, feel that the feedback sessions that we've had, where we're actually told what is possible, what is happening, what is not going to happen, that has immensely enhanced the process. I just think it would be better to lay those issues out in terms of prioritization earlier in the year rather than later. But that's me. That's my only comment on the schedule. I really appreciate it, because this then informs my life next year. As retired, I get to put all of this down and plan my whole year out. So it's very, very helpful. I know it's a lot of work, so this is much appreciated.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Alvarez's work on this and also Elizabeth and I, but Dr. Alvarez, you did the most. And this is the hardest thing in the world, as we all saw by the whole last year of everybody changing things, going crazy. I love the idea of a master calendar. And I think, you know, we will continue to emphasize that, you know, you don't have to be at every meeting. We've got alternates. Everybody has an alternate. And I personally think that alternates are a good experience for the alternate to learn about a committee. So I look forward to this. I think it's wonderful. The only things that I would suggest, or I guess what would be the next steps? So I assume we'll bring this to the full board for approval, or no, we won't. This is just.
No, we were not thinking of having it approved. We never approved the calendar for the board. The only, so I think its usefulness, it's a long-term planning tool. I did want to incorporate your feedback from the executive committee. We want to publish way in advance so that people can plan accordingly. And that's as much as we can do today.
That's true. You're right. But what I'm wondering is that, you know, everyone will have an opinion about this. Everyone will have something that will conflict.
Yeah.
I do. The Washington D.C. legislative deal is the same day as this CARPED conference, which I'll work it out. But some people may have some real issues. I hope that we get this, even though it's, well, I mean, yeah, you're getting feedback today. I hope we get feedback from the rest of the board, because we should go into the year. I think we hopefully enter the year. Everybody has a committee assignment. Everybody knows the dates they're supposed to be there. And if they don't, they should hopefully understand, get an alternate to come, and we won't have the same. I know it was a burden to staff to suggest, oh, can we change this to this day? And oh, what about earlier in the morning or later? And let's cancel this or reschedule it. It's just too hard. We need to have I love the idea of a master calendar and sticking to it. I think I personally just, on looking at this, I love all the information I get at meetings and board meetings. And I don't know, just I advocated for August being the month we take off. I like that whole month off. I was thinking that based on that, in the past, we were always told, oh my God, we're too busy around here to take the month of August off. We have to have at least one meeting. We have the opportunity to do, I thought in July, if you look at your schedule, we could meet the 1st and the 3rd, which we normally do, which would have been the 2nd, the 16th, and then hold the August meeting on the 30th of July. And that would, we're eliminating a meeting. I understand that's easier. I personally find every meeting I come to here, especially board meetings, is very informative. And there's so many questions and things I have and presentations I'd like to see. If I'll talk to my other fellow board members about it, but just maybe having a 3rd meeting at the end of July to cover August, so to speak. Also, yeah, it could be now, it could be later. This is a great master calendar. I love it. I'll be able to, like Colin said, plan. I surely hope that in the next half hour, we're going to find out these wonderful, glorious plans for our 90th anniversary. I have every one of my weekends blocked out based on, I hope there's a celebration every weekend to celebrate our 90th. I know that's crazy, but I think we should really push it hard, because well, I think we've got a great thing to show. So I'm hoping that the plan will be in place by when we get these when we have the committees in session, and then we can fill in the master calendar with events that we're having on the weekends throughout the coming year. And that's all I had. So Kelly,
wait, Dennis, I had only one question, then I wanted to come back. So I did want to say, Dr. Alvarez, thank you so much. I know this is this was way more work than it appears on paper, and a lot of coordinating and a lot of conversations. And so I just really appreciate all the time that you put in. And I do feel like it's a great investment, because putting this time in up front and saying, okay, board, this is our master calendar for the year, and for the public for that matter too, like this is our master calendar for the year, and then really stick with it, will save so much time and efficiencies over the course of this 2024 and beyond. So thank you again for putting the work in and talking with everyone and listening with everyone, and yeah, appreciate all the work.
Thank you. It was a real team effort with the executive team and our general manager.
Colin?
Yeah, I
Well, thanks
just,
everybody. Takes a village.
one other thought occurred to me, and that is, it was my impression that we were going to embark on master planning next year.
Yes, correct.
And I don't see that worked into this. And that would certainly take up some workshop time.
Well, my understanding is that the overlay with the master planning, we can certainly do that as we understand what that would look like. We don't have that yet. This was really the first attempt to reflect the regular meetings and our regular business calendar. And to the point of Director Wasby, it does not include, for instance, one-time specialty items like the 90th anniversary, which we're working towards a comprehensive calendar. And certainly the master planning will be another piece to think there. I would also, we haven't began yet the planning for the retreat, for the board retreat in 2024, but I can certainly anticipate that there will be a component of master planning there as well.
So let me repeat something I said at Ledge Committee, that I guess you heard me say it already, Dennis. The master planning process, I think, should be heavily informed by our surveys. And I understand the government affairs is embarking on, I think, what they refer to as a scientific study, as opposed to the general survey we do online. But I found the relatively short sessions that we had at the committee and board level on the prior surveys were a bit frustrating, because there's a lot of nuance in it, and a lot of trends and very interesting findings that, to me, would heavily inform us as we do master planning. I think the topic of going into the surveys, whatever state of completion we have, early in the year would greatly help us, and do that in the format of a workshop. Because I just the two, we spent maybe 20 minutes or a half hour at two different sessions on it, and there's just a lot there. And I'd like to get into depth on trends. I know you were concerned about the trend on receptiveness to parcel taxes, and I think we should get into that in depth. So I'll throw that out there for our incoming president to think about, and maybe follow up on with management.
Thank you. Kelly, do you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, with regard to the idea of surveys, there's a few issues that are the third rail of politics, and the public is going to beat down your doors to get what they want. So you won't need surveys to on some issues. You'll know what people are saying. And now I want to put on my hat as a self-appointed board labor negotiator. And I don't want to sound too crass, too mercenary, but I am the voice of capitalism and budgetary realism. And I think it's important to tie this calendar to the budget. That's the expenditure budget, the labor budget. So I'm wondering If all these things, all these different activities and things where board directors supposed to show up and sit down and work somewhere, if they have that like fee, you get paid a certain amount for showing up at a meeting. Are you getting paid a certain amount for showing up and sitting in front of the general manager and talking to them? Are you getting paid a certain amount for going to the annual conference of whatever at the state of wherever? Are you getting paid those fees, labor fees, whatever they are? If you're not getting paid for all the things that you're expected to show up at, or at least most of them, a lot of that list, and maybe more, we need a lawyer. We have a lawyer here to work out the legalities. And I'd also bring in a human resources analyst to redo the compensation plan, expand it, so you guys get paid for showing up at all that stuff. I mean, why not just make that list longer and longer and longer? If you guys are working for free, we can make that list super long and get you guys to work for free. But I don't think that's realistic as a self-appointed board labor negotiator. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So thank you for your presentation. I look forward to seeing how this is going to work, this master calendar. Our next item is the Acquisition, Stewardship, and Development Department Keller Beach Project update. Welcome, Ren.
Good afternoon, board members. Pleasure to be here. Let me pull up my presentation. Bear with me for a sec, please. I am here to give an update on the Keller Beach project. So it is a project that, if you recall, we had a board site visit there, not this year, but last, and we stood there and discussed that. So I'm here to give an update as to what has happened, transpired since then, what we've done, accomplished, and what our goals are moving forward. There we go. So this is Keller Beach. It's in Miller Knox. We stood up here along Dornan Drive at the tunnel when we were out there for the board site tour. I am here to give a project update. Here are the dark blue are the phases we've completed. The medium blue with the green arrow underneath it is where we are today. And the lighter blue are steps we need to do. I'll get into these phases in the next few slides for each of the different corresponding colors. Here is the project location map, just for a point of reference. We are on the Richmond shoreline. This is in Point Richmond, and Keller Beach is the northernmost portion of our park. The other project we're working on now is the Ferry Point Pier removal, which is down here at the other end of the park, and we're still waiting on permits for that. I'll just put that out there. So a little bit of history to the site itself. Prior to 1966, the site was privately owned as a saloon/pier known as Keller's Beach House. In 1967, the city of Richmond took ownership of that property and constructed the Keller Beach Park as it exists today. So we're talking about a facility that is over 50 years old. I know that's pretty average for the park district, but as that is, we need to renovate this facility. So in 1977, again, it was incorporated into the Miller Knox Regional Shoreline itself. This drawing is of the 1967 as-built. So as I said, it still exists pretty much as it was constructed 50 plus years ago. In 2019, the Park District endeavored to do a land use plan amendment and according to EIR. So in that land use plan amendment, which was adopted by the board, these four goals were set forth for the Keller Beach area and the shoreline. So formalizing access to the bay shore, upgrading the landscaping, upgrading amenities, and performing climate change resilience study at the bay shore. So these were sort of our driving tenets in project development. Here's a little bit of existing conditions. You can see that the facilities have lived their lifespan. So we have facilities that are deteriorating. There's not accessibility. This image shows a lot of cracks in the flatwork around the restroom. There's no accessible path of travel to the amenities from the beach or down to the beach. If you recall, when we were up on Dornan Drive, it's pretty steep to get down to there. We also talked with park staff, and we've learned that the use wasn't really great because this terrace is the picnicking terrace, and this terrace up here has the restroom. So in order for people to access the restroom, they're passing through that picnic area. So it wasn't really well utilized. We learned that the overlook and the lower terrace planters are hard to maintain. And there has been invasive trees that have been removed. And so it's introduced new views, or maybe views that were there before, but have been obstructed by these trees. So those were existing conditions. These are some of the activities we've taken on in the last couple of years. So we did a geotechnical report. There's a lot of grading that's going to have to happen. We're putting in ramps for accessibility. So there will be some structural walls. So we did a geotechnical report to inform that. Based on the land use plan amendment, we have done a sea level rise resiliency assessment for this site. It's mostly above some of the predictions, so we're fairly good on that front. We had a topographical survey done so that we would have spots and grades to inform our design so that we can make engineering plans to meet ADA code. The agronomic soil testing is to find out how the soil is out there. So when we do upgraded landscaping, if we need to amend the soil or not. And then lastly, we did Section 106 compliance, and this is in compliance with some of our grant funding that we are anticipating to receive. So that included a cultural resource technical study and outreach to tribes. What we did internally as staff is came up with a preliminary concept plan. This site has many constraints. And so instead, it felt best to have one of our internal staff, Eva Rose Levitt, who's a landscape architect here and works in design and construction, manage these. It was interdisciplinary. We invited cross divisions to come and give input on what we needed to incorporate in terms of the design. And so that included operations, public safety, stewardship, everybody to chime in on how we were going to do this. And the thought process is as staff, we figured we could come up with a concept plan that would fit the needs of the district that we then could take out and have consultants develop after we had determined what that initial concept was. So that was a several month process. At the beginning of this year, we entered into agreement with board approval to hire design consultants, RDG. They've worked with the district before. Their team comprised of civil engineer, landscape architect, and architect. The architect is helping us to get the restroom out there. We want to try to use our standards, but sort of update it and keep this build. The nature of this is sort of mid-century, we think, in terms of it being developed in the 60s. And so we want to keep some of that consistent with our redevelopment of this site and keep the spirit of it alive. So, our consultants have taken the preliminary concept plan as developed by staff and has then vetted that with engineering, making sure that we have all of our slopes that meet ADA, that as exhibited in this image below. They checked with some regulatory agencies. We've had initial meetings with BCDC because this is a shoreline project. And so the team will then take our concept plan and take it through construction documents, and we'll utilize those for permitting. And we have regularly scheduled meetings with the consultants as we develop those plans. So these are the concept plans. The next 3 slides I'm showing, so the land use plan was done in 2019. We're moving forward with this project. We thought it would be beneficial to have a public outreach, so open house at the on-site. We're shooting for that mid-month. Again, this is just an update, informational kind of meeting. We're not having a big event. It'll be staff on site, tabling booths to answer questions, remind folks that there was a 2019 land use plan amendment. There were some recommendations. We're moving forward this project. We've learned that it's best to update sometimes in the time it takes to go from land use plan amendment and EIR to project implementation. The people that we engaged sometimes forget. So we wanted to have this meeting to engage. So the next 3 slides I'm showing will be exhibits that will be shown on the 14th. We wanted to show, again, this is the project intent is to have a ADA access to Keller Beach. And some of our constraints are that Dornan Drive is a public road, so we can't put any parking up there. The other constraint is that the topography precludes us from running out that ramp. So in other words, it's too steep. And in order to shorten a ramp, we need to have more length. And so we can't have that. So at this site. And so the solution is to expand some parking at the existing Keller Beach parking lot, most northern, and then have a flat path of travel that goes, it's a quarter of a mile. So we have other facilities in the district that have a quarter of a mile. Big Break, for example, to get out to the Delta Discovery Experience is a quarter mile. And so we have facilities that mimic this in terms of the length for accessible ADA access. So what would happen is you would park here, come along, come out. This portion or right here is all railroad line. It's active line that we don't want folks to walk on or across. And so that is why our access comes out along on the shoreline to Keller Beach. And then we have ramps that get you up to the restroom and picnic area. And just as a reminder, this is a service maintenance access and it is too steep for ADA access. So this is one of our slides to show the overall scope. Then we've had our consultants come up with some renderings because lots of folks don't read plans super well. And so these are offering some visualization as to how this will be developed. So it's not too far off from what's out there, but what I will highlight is that we do provide these ramps that get us up to all of the different platforms and picnic areas as they are. You'll see that this asphalt maintenance road will still continue and maintain. It will be there for access. And then we've also in the project will provide some mats that get you from the park all the way to the beach and then up to the restrooms and showers. I will also note this address some of the what we heard about the conflicts with use. And we've also learned that this is a large open water body swim area. And so folks would get out and they would run up and go to the shower. And so this is now the showers at the top of the stairs. So there's not conflict. Again, we're just, as we do this, we're trying to create facilities that match user needs and experiences there. And this last slide is the last conceptual rendering that shows that connection from Keller Beach all the way back into the park. This actually shows very well the railroad line. And so again, as a reminder, this whole portion is owned by the railroad and we have no access to that. You can see there's evidence of overland crossing here. Folks have been doing that. The district has been in negotiations on litigation about all of this. All that is to say as part of that is that we are not going to enter into that and we're going to try to preclude that overland crossing. And so that's why our access comes along, skirts the property, and then comes along the shoreline, which we now have a permanent easement on from the railroad to get to the beach. Funding wise, we have a current engineer's estimate of about $4.7 million. This is to redo the entirety. So it is all the paving, walls, redo of the bathroom, and there's a pretty significant paving like distance. So this is where we're at currently. We have about half of that funding from the LWCF, which is Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. We were awarded that. We expect to enter into contract and get those funds in 2024. And we continue to work with grants to seek funding from other grantors. The budget right now has money for FF and CC. So there are funds that the district has provided and they are in the project. So this is our funding at this point. So back to our schedule. Here we are. We're going to have our community engagement again on October 14th. I have a flyer that's been sent out in a next slide to show. We'll continue design development, seek funding. Our goal is to in the next year to complete contract document development and use those plans to get permitting, which will be with the city of Richmond, BCDC. We are trying to stay above waterline, but we're not sure about what all regulatory permits we'll have as we develop plans and get those more detailed out. We'll know which we'll have to do. We'll continue to seek funding. And we're hoping that by 2025, we can bid and construct this project. So here's our flyer. This has been mailed out. It's on the 14th. Again, it's an open house sort of. There's not a big presentation because we want to be able to capture both access points, both from Dornan Drive and Miller Knox. So we're not sure. We just want to make sure that we capture everybody that's there and folks that want to show up. So this has been sent out. All board members are invited to attend if you so desire. We would love to see you there. And we can provide information as to if there are questions that would arise that you would be confronted with. We can share all of our talking points on that. So with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to field questions.
Thank you, Ren. Any questions or comments by board members?
Sure, I'll go. Lynn, what is the status of the I'm just drawing a blank on the BNSF lawsuit. There was an appeal taken, I think, and then we went into discussions to reach some kind of settlement.
Actually, I think prior to appeal, we engaged in settlement discussions and we did settle the case.
Right.
BNSF is in the process of applying for permission to abandon the railway down there. It hasn't, the latest update I have is that they're still waiting on some type of approval from some agency so that they can actually make their application with the STB.
Okay.
But so that's just kind of moving forward. It's just not moving as
So
quickly.
it's resolved, but it hasn't entirely been implemented.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I can speak to that from a project point of view, is that the settlement was finalized by Rachel Slater before she left. And part of that is that it has to be approved by the Transportation Commission, which meets once or twice a year, as I understand it. So we're waiting on that approval. And once that board approves that, we can begin to then do some of these improvements. And as part of that settlement, there are specifications on the fencing that we'll use along that active railroad line. And so those are requirements that are part of the settlement that implicate or that are become essential to this project, and that we will then have to comply with as part of that, which then allows us in the future to develop the shoreline further down and to the south to do that. And so this project, because of that litigation that you spoke of, Director Coffey, we moved this one up because that other one we weren't sure of the timeline of how long that would take. And so this is our first step in developing that Miller Knox shoreline as called out in FF so that we can do that. So
Okay. I think that does it for me.
Elizabeth, anything?
Great. Well, Ren, thank you so much for the presentation and update. Ren and I were actually out there with a whole bunch of folks recently as part of my board site visits. And so I think most of my questions are answered, but I really appreciate your help on this. And I do plan to come by the open house. And I'm just wondering though, so is it looks like it's just like a drop in anytime thing, or what are you, and I can talk offline too, but I'm just wondering, is there any particular, if board members want to come, should they just drop in, or is there a time that we should be there in particular, or what works?
So that's a great question, Director Eccles. We were planning on having an open format. I think we can discuss and have something right at the beginning if directors want to show up, and that way we can acknowledge everyone, make sure that they're there, so we can accommodate that. And if you want to say something, we won't preclude that at all. Like, I'm not trying to say you can't say something. We just thought because of the access, it would just be easier for everyone. Like, we just wanted to share consistent information is all. But so yes, we can accommodate that, and we can have a little thing at the beginning if directors want to say something. So I will say we'll have something at 10, and then it'll be open house sort of forum from there on.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I mean, we don't need to say anything really, but I was just trying to figure out the logistics for planning purposes. But yeah, that sounds good. Thank you.
So Ren, that is a great swimming place, and one of the rare swimming places we have in the Bay. Does our water folks test that water?
It's tested regularly. Yes, it is Yes, it is tested by us. It's one of the, as you point out, it is well used as a swimming facility, and it is tested on a regular. I don't know the frequency, but it is tested quite frequently. I mean, weekly, monthly, for making sure that's safe.
And then this, I understand maybe incorrectly, but you're working on the initial design, but you're going to get some input and then have a final design phase.
So we're not seeking input necessarily from the public at this. It's more of an open house. And the reason that we're not seeking a lot of input is we have a very constrained site. It's about renovating the existing facilities as they are. And so we're replacing those uses, and the goal is to update those to code and functionality, because they basically live the service of their life. And so in terms of that, oftentimes we do go out to solicit public input on some projects when there's a wider range or more sort of options of what we could address. We decided as staff that this project is very constrained, that it was pretty defined about what we needed to do. And so we develop plans, and then we'll inform our constituents that we're basically renovating the site And so it meets existing needs and uses.
So I was leading towards, would this qualify as a design build project?
I would have to get back to you on that because I think where we are, I have to double check because we've
Are we too
engaged.
far down the line?
I think we've engaged with a designer at a point where now they've gone beyond 30%. We could revisit it. I don't know. We weren't planning on that at this point because of where we are. But it's a question worth revisiting as.
I'm just interested. I'm excited to see that process, and I'm wondering when it's going to happen.
You and I as well. It looks like our AGM.
This is Lisa Gorgon, Assistant General Manager of Operations. I did want to just add on to what Ren said about community input. Ren mentioned at the beginning, there was a tremendous community engagement as part of the land use plan amendment. And so that community engagement was really taken at that time. And so as Ren said, this project is really implementing that.
And then finally, I don't know how to approach this. I know there's nothing we can do, but I find it interesting having worked there a number of times. And there was another redo of that project. I forget when, but it was Jeff and Gross and I and a couple of carpenters. We did a hillside drilling and did a lot of shoring of the stuff, but it doesn't matter. But I'm looking at that. It's so compact. It's so steep. And I know there's nothing we can do, but I look at that, the design you had there, it looks like it's going to be a park full of ramps and nothing else. I mean, the ramps overtake everything in my vision when you show that on the deal. There's no other way,
We need to build ramps. I think our goal is to minimize that. And so we've tried to fit it into the slope where we don't need to build necessarily ramps along the whole, or walls along the whole ramp. And so that, in other words, it as best we can follows contour so that we're not build walls that hold up the ramps. So that's our best effort. But at this point, no, there's not really any other option. And coming up from the beach is a better solution than coming down from the road. And again, at the road, we don't have any parking. I think this has been to your point, it's a big challenge. And I would posit that's been why it's been punted for quite a while.
Thanks.
But so that's where we are.
Elizabeth, did you have a comment?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Dennis, because I had sort of the same reaction when I first looked at it. But Ren, remind me, so the ramps, are they going to provide access for disabled people or not? Because I thought that
Yes.
Oh, they are. Okay, but folks won't be able to get all the way up to the restroom. Is that what?
No, there will be ramps to code up to the restroom. It's from the restroom up to Dornan Drive, which is deep for us to revise and renovate without moving lots more, impacting the area at greater expense.
Got it. Okay, so these ramps, this is what's because of the grade, and I do know there's a steep grade there. So because of the grade, we need this many ramps back and forth in order for folks to be able to safely access that restroom and kind of get up the hill to the recreational areas for folks who are disabled.
Correct. Right. Currently, there's no accessible path of travel from the beach up to the restroom. You can't get up there, but necessarily from the main park. There's not a path of travel from the main park because there isn't a formalized path that gets you from there across. So they're not firm and stable surfaces. You can get there as an able-bodied person, but the aim of this project is to provide access from Miller Knox proper to Keller Beach and to all of the amenities there. So, which don't currently exist as they are existing now.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. If there's no further comment from anyone on the board or the public, thank you very much, Ren.
Thank you.
And we'll move to the 90th anniversary plan.
President Waspy, Director Echoes, Director Coffee, thank you. I'm Susan Shu, Assistant General Manager of Public Affairs. Thank you for your time today. Would like to share the East Bay Regional Park District's 90th anniversary plan for next year. Again, in 2024, we will be celebrating our 90th anniversary. The Regional Parks Foundation will be celebrating its 55th. So we're very excited. I'm pleased to share. I'm going to share a screen. If you'll give me a second here. And we look forward to your feedback. We look forward to your feedback and any comments you may have at the end of this. Again, it's our plan for next year. It will engage staff, the public, our community members, our partners, and any external support we might need to move forward. Our primary objectives, and certainly we see great opportunity for next year. One of the key things that we would like to emphasize is the notion of being welcoming to all park visitors. It's very important for us to engage diverse audiences, certainly raise awareness of the park district and its brand, favorable one. We want to engage district employees, certainly support human resources recruitment, right? That jobs pipeline, educate and connect. Our strategies for achieving these objectives span from community outreach to staff engagement and participation, various events, as you noted, President Waspy, stakeholder engagement, and you got to love this last one, fundraising. As you can see from the slide, it's important to make connections. As a park district, that means engaging our staff, our employees, our funders, the community, the broader community, our volunteers, and again, that human resource recruitment piece that's so important to all that we do here. As I've hinted before, we do have a 90th anniversary logo. I keep teasing it. My apologies. We plan to unveil it shortly. Just don't want the idea stolen just yet. For a 90th logo, it will really be used throughout our brand, from our website, social media, to the district letterhead, our email signature, park signage, board agenda with the branding and other communications. I would say that with our 90th logo, I will tell you that it does not have a tagline on purpose. I think our brand, but the purpose of really trying to reach a more diverse audience across the board, the goal is also to allow individuals to derive their own meaning. And there can be many meanings to what we represent visually in a brand and a logo. That is not to say we won't use hashtags or taglines for particular campaigns and all the other things we want to do next year, including supporting community engagement for the district plan and also any other community engagement efforts. So all of that thinking is behind the scenes. And thank you for your support. But again, very eager to launch that 90th logo across the board here in our various communications for consistent branding. Our various communications avenues for next year, certainly I know everyone is eager for us to have our 2024 calendar to celebrate our 90th. Staff has, they've been working on it for quite some time, and we will be circling back to continue to deliver that to you. Website content, certainly video use. I used to run TV stations. I really enjoy using multimedia. It allows us to tell the story differently. The Compass magazine, as you know, regional in nature activity guide. We certainly want to highlight features. And for us, what we have done very successfully recently or during my tenure is also, once we've produced the regional in nature activity guide, it's available on the website, but we have been actively pushing it on social media to get more eyeballs and more views for the RIN. That's been really important given the tremendous amount of work between interpretation, recreation staff in operations, and also public affairs down to graphic design. So once we've designed it and developed it, it's been very important and very successful through social media to have more viewers to the RIN in a digital fashion. And in many ways, there are no changes for existing publications. We actually hope to do more, but certainly I keep in mind being environmentally friendly as we consider very progressive and progressively in simple ways to go a little more green and a little more environmentally friendly. E-newsletters include employee newsletters and our public e-news that goes out monthly. Very happy that we launched our employee newsletter this year, and certainly print and digital communications. I think we have tremendous opportunity to do more online. Swag, who doesn't love branded giveaways? Certainly these are some ideas. I look forward to hearing more from you, from water bottles to mugs, so that we can reduce the one-use utensils and cup use internally. Drawstring backpacks, pens and pencils, T-shirts, commemorative pins that I know are beloved here, reusable tote bags, and even bandanas. I think our GM threw out an idea, and I will research. We might need to have a pet contest where we're handing out bandanas for the dogs that show up, so that they can brand our district and that they are welcome at some of our parks. Advertising and promotion. I look forward to delivering further paid advertising as well as free promotional opportunities that would be online, radio, television, newspapers, magazines, PSAs, public service announcements, which we would like to tap more of, and certainly all the things we do in the community, from ambassador events to any activity we are out there to represent at tabling. Through tabling. Anniversary events. We are looking forward to planning a 90th birthday party in the spring. We really need to have a big bash, even though the intent is to celebrate the entire year and really infuse every program, every event with the fact that it is our 90th birthday and it's a wonderful thing to celebrate. We certainly want to have a big party. We will also talk about it during our dedications and signature events, fundraising events. The Regional Parks Foundation is planning a major event in the fall, along with other events during the year, so that we can continue to build capacity on the fundraising end. Some ideas might be brewing in the park with coffee. And I reminded staff, hot cocoa also goes well with that for the little ones. Virtual scavenger hunts, the Trails Challenge. You know, we celebrated our 30th anniversary of that this year, and certainly next year, another opportunity to brand across the board. Concerts in the parks. Very important that we really think about our celebrations geographically across both counties and across different geographies, so that we can reach more and more people. And every event next year is a 90th anniversary celebration. Last but not least, community relations and board member participation. Certainly opportunities to speak at the mayor's conference, participation in ambassador managed community fairs and festivals. We are eager to expand the Speakers Bureau to engage all of you before city councils, nonprofits, business organizations, and community groups. And certainly with government affairs support, we look forward to getting legislative anniversary proclamations and commendations. So this is a broad view of a plan, and for you as board members to realize that staff will, take care of the details and really deliver. We look forward to engaging everyone, and again, infusing just the fact that we are celebrating this incredible milestone and looking forward to another 90 years. I welcome your comments and feedback. Really, some of the work will also engage libraries and, seniors, and there's so many opportunities, but I'd like to hear from you as well.
Great, thank you very much. Questions from board members?
Elizabeth, you want to go first?
Sure, either way. I was waiting for you, but I'll go. Well, thank you.
First.
What's that?
I've been going first, so I thought I'd defer.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So thank you so much for the presentation. This is very exciting. Looking forward to celebrating and all the outreach that you've got in the plans, and really, as you say, for those who aren't already aware of what we do and what's available to increase people's awareness and promote that positive brand. So thank you. That sounds really good. So let's see. just in terms of questions or comments, I had just one very specific one. So you were saying what kind of swag? The thing that I actually think has been the most helpful and useful is the one that they put out a few years ago, which is they're reusable. They're like wooden fork, knife, spoon, chopsticks, all in this little East Bay Parks packet. So it's really easy to carry it around. It keeps it all together. And so, you know, obviously it helps with not people not bringing their, you know, plastic things. So I would really encourage bringing that back for a 90th anniversary
Noted.
swag. Yeah. And then I was just curious too. I don't know if you know, I mean, I fully agree with a year-long celebration. I think that's warranted in your 90th anniversary. Oh, but what would you consider the actual date? Do you know that offhand? You can get back to me if you don't.
Oh, I'm gonna have to get back to you. Forgive
No
me, I'm
worries.
celebrating and having fun all year, that we will get back to you on that note.
So you
Yeah,
just
no.
the actual date of, you mean the,
Incorporation.
well, it'd probably be the day after the election in 1934, right? Some November something,
November.
or maybe it took some time, but I would assume that would be the victory.
Well, when were the incorporation papers drawn up, I guess is what I was wondering. We can find out. We can
We'll
find
find
out.
that out.
22 years later, we're 88th anniversary.
Yeah, in a way,
Oh.
we could just choose that. We could choose the election date to kind of celebrate the fact that the people created us in November of 1934. You could pick a date.
We'll
All
look
of
that
the
up.
above. All of the above. I like the idea of starting the celebration early in the spring, though. I think that makes
Yeah.
sense. Maybe you have the birthday party in the spring, but then you do something, you know, around in November when we are actually, because I think it is important that people know that it was on the ballot and we were created by the community, you know, and we're, you know, we're supported by the community, and it's their park, it's everybody's park. And so I think that is a message worth highlighting. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Director. We also, I didn't mention this, but recognizing our history and respecting it, even as we look at current conditions and plan forward, we also have plans to really come up with an archives exhibit that can travel. Staff is working on that. So many pieces to the puzzle, I should say.
Oh, fun. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. Colin?
Yeah, this is the fun stuff. And it's not lost on me that the role of the board of directors here seems to be creating much more work for management. And I apologize for that. I wanted to advocate for regional events, ranging from locations like Ardenwood at one end of the district to Big Break at the other end of the district. I just think we should use it as an opportunity to celebrate with local officials. And, you know, being from Ward 7, to me, it would be a great opportunity to celebrate with East Contra Costa public officials who haven't been historically as engaged in what we do as, say, most of Alameda County and most of the west end of Alameda County and Contra Costa. So we could look at it as an opportunity to do that with some regional events, not to take away from having a major fundraiser at some point during the year, as you're speaking to, or maybe one overall general event. But if we could somehow focus on some regional events as well, I think that would be helpful. I do think we should use it, as you're suggesting, as an opportunity to educate the public on who we are. I continue to find the ambassador gigs that I do, my wife and I do, as opportunities to remind people that we're an independent special district. They pay taxes to us, they elect our board. There's a lot of recognition of our parks, our parklands, and our trails And again, it gets back to what the surveys tell us. There's a good portion of people who don't really know who we are, though, even if they're very familiar with the park system and the trail system. Are you a state agency? Are you part of the state? Are you part of the county? That type of questioning we continue to get. And so talking about the history is important, and using the celebrations and all the work that goes into it to educate people and remind them who we are, what we are, and celebrate the success of the park district. There's wide recognition, again, informed by my ambassador tabling. There's widespread appreciation for this park system. People who live here are aware of their having a rather unique and special park system, and we should certainly celebrate that. Want to mention that Director Beverly Lane had been advocating that there be a fundraising event. I think she spoke to members of the foundation, and she was advocating for holding a significant fundraiser, which we've been talking about since COVID started letting up. And certainly it could be part of the overall 90th birthday celebration. But I just want to note on behalf of Director Lane, she thought that an outdoor event similar to what, say, Mount Diablo does in its annual Moonlight on the Mountain event, which is very successful, but perhaps located at Thurgood Marshall. Of course, that was her ward, and though she felt that Thurgood Marshall would be an attraction in itself, since it's not an open park yet, and logistically there are locations where you could put on a major event. So I just wanted, in her absence, to note what she had been advocating. Oh, and swag. There is, Lynn has one of those water bottles that has it's metal and has etched into it the leaf, I believe. I've seen you carry it. I have one at home. And I only mention it because when I've brought it to the tabling events that I do, people always see it on the table and ask me if it's for sale. And so it was very popular when we had them, and we're giving them away. So that's my contribution to swag.
Thank you, Director. We look forward to keeping you busy next year with all the ambassador work that you do on our behalf. And also, I will share those comments with the Executive Director of the Foundation and its board. Okay, thank you.
All right, so I do have
Your
some
turn.
documents. Deborah, thank you very much for clearing this up. I don't know if this is clarity, but this is a resolution from the Alameda County Board of Supervisors. It was dated November 6th, 1934. And it's declaring, whereas it appears the board from the canvass conducted is provided by law and the election held on November 6th, 1934, that the Park District is in fact created, and then the resolution or the resolved is be it hereby further resolved, ordered, and declared that the East Bay Regional Park District is created and established, consisting of blah, 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 blah. I don't know if that's enough. Sounds like enough to me. I don't know. But I guess, and so for my questions on the celebration, we're doing budgeting right now. Is there a budget for this event?
There is a budget for this event. We'll see what we can do with it.
Can you tell me what
We
the budget
do.
is?
I'm blanking on that right now.
Okay, well,
I
that'd
think
be interesting, because I would, but I bet you'd get a little more if you asked. Just an
I
editorial.
think the powers are listening.
Good. Okay, so I have a number of ideas, like everyone else, but I think I would really like to see, we talked about some of the people we're trying to attract, and I think we said staff and things like that. I would love to see a homecoming day. there's a lot of retirees in the Park District, and this is one of the best retirees association I've ever been associated with. It's the only one, by the way, but they're, you know, the retirees are very, very active. They support our efforts. They do lots of good stuff for us. And, you know, just a homecoming day, get people that worked here to come back and have some type of picnic celebration, whatever. I agree with Colin, or I forget, or Beverly, one large event. I mean, a real signature event. I think we should do. I like the idea of swag. I like, I don't know, T-shirts and hats. I don't know if they were mentioned, but I mean, it seems like if somebody wears a T-shirt, it's an advertisement for your product. Whereas some of the other stuff might not be as attractive, but I like the idea of an advertisement commemorating our 90th birthday. We talked about musical events or some type of events to attract different cultures. I think a great example of that was, I think it was Keith White from the foundation. Oh shoot, where's Mona?
The jazz
Martin Luther King
performance.
Jr. or pardon me, what is their name? The Martin Luther King Choral Ensemble. But anyway, at the UN Day of Peace, he found some very young people from, I think they were affiliated with Martin Luther King Jr. Center. I could be wrong, but he discovered these folks. They're amateurs, and I don't mean that in any other way under that. We don't need a giant headliner. We don't need Taylor Swift. But I think if we engage the community where these young artists are burgeoning, this would be a great idea to use people like that. We talked about how we'll get this stuff done. I think this would be a great use of the Civic Corps and a great use of the volunteers. I know that in the past celebrations we've had here, volunteers, you know, they just step up to the plate and really get as excited as we do about these things. I think we should do some extra work on collaborating with cities and city governments. I mean, at these events, the mayor should be there celebrating along with us, and city council members and anybody that's involved in the community. If it were my choice, I would do something really, really big at Thurgood Marshall, because I think we need to really promote that park. Oh, and you mentioned branding and logos. Do you have any examples of that?
I do. I don't have it to show you today. I look forward to sharing it with you.
Okay, you know this group. Don't wait till the last minute.
We have one selected already. The GM and I have approved, and so I will share that.
I would have bet there will be a lot of opinions up here. And then I hope we can engage some people that have really worked for us in the past. And I'm referring to Doug McConnell and Bay Area Backroads. He's got a following that, you know, Doug is not doing the work anymore, but his executive producer or whatever the guy's title was doing an excellent job in his stead. And I think Doug still has some input, and we've always depended upon him and his great reputation and his great following. Bay Nature used to be one of our big supporters. And I think they probably would be a great collaborator and partner. I think with the newest thing that we've gotten since our last 5-year or 85th, I guess, was the creation of our archives. So I think Brenda Montana, right, we should get her to write a history of the district, or get her, somebody can do it. Amelia Marshall, they all work together to have a written document, book, oral history, some type of deal, but let's talk about the history.
Jerry Kent has done that in outline.
Or yeah, Jerry, that'd be great. Yeah. And then, boy, I hate to do this, but I think it's very, very important because we need to do some fundraising. And I'll quote Frank Zappa. I think I've done it before, who said, if you really want to have a real legitimate country, you have to have a football team, you have to have a lot of nuclear bombs, and you got to have a beer. So I really think we ought to have a beer. And, you know, we laugh, but at our 85th, I think we encourage, or we partnered with John Martin, who is on our foundation. secretary of the Parks Foundation, who created a beer called Kickback Ale at his brewery, Drake's Brewery. And I think he's even said he's willing to make another beer with our name on it and promote it, just like Sierra Nevada did with his Resilience beer that they did to promote the rebuilding of paradise. So I think I'd like to pursue that.
I can confirm that that we will be working on that with the foundation. It is
good.
already in the works through the foundation's efforts. But yes, I know how popular that was and will be because it's been confirmed as part of the foundation's efforts. Yeah, but thank you for all of the ideas. I look forward to hearing. I will be, I believe I may be presenting before the full board, but looking to hear more ideas. Please reach out to me if you have any other ideas. It will, again, I would say that it will be a balance because staff and everyone could work 365 days a year, but really balancing all that we can do with what is feasible, but at the same time getting the best bang out of for our bucks and for our staff time and volunteers. But thank you so much for all of the ideas. It's so exciting for me, and we really have support across divisions. We have a cross-divisional committee internally, and we have already met with the Employee Appreciation Luncheon, the head of that, the internal staff member. We have support across the board from all the various AGMs and divisions, and so this is a great opportunity to celebrate. And I'll be honest, we just want to have fun. Let's celebrate all year. We have that opportunity.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any members of the public wish to speak? Hearing,
Can I echo you?
oh, please do.
I want to echo President Waspie's suggestion that we get back on sponsorship of Open Roads and Bay Nature. In particular, our land trust partners, Save Mount Diablo and John Muir Land Trust, continue to sponsor Open Roads and get their stories on air, and have been questioning. I hear the questioning why we're not doing it. It's watched by an awful lot of people, and I could see them devoting an entire show to the 90th anniversary.
Oh, without a doubt.
And that would be, I mean, if we do it for that purpose alone, it'll be worth the cost. So I just wanted to echo you on that. And Bay Nature is also a good vehicle for getting an article about the 90th into their publication.
Thank you for your comments.
All right. Thank you very much for your presentation. I look forward to the 90th.
Yes, thank you.
And we'll move now to land acquisition criteria in application case studies. Michael, welcome.
Offer a note to Susan and to the board that next year, November 6th, will of course fall on the day after the general election. So we may not want to drop any kind of any public announcements or press releases on that day. Well, this is a lot of inspirational thoughts and ideas were thrown out at the previous discussion, and I have to follow that with getting into wonky criteria and process. But if you'll indulge me for a short while, we'll walk you through this. So good afternoon, President Waspie and Directors Coffey and Eccles. Mike Reeves, your Chief of Land Acquisition. And what we're going to walk through today are 4 case studies that look at how we apply the acquisition criteria that we presented, staff presented to the board during its April 25th land study session this last spring. I'm going to be working from a script here because I want to make sure I hit all the points that I'd like to cover with you today. As discussed during that April 25th study session, and also as explained in the Park District's 2013 master plan, the use of a standardized set of criteria to evaluate land acquisition opportunities is not intended to rank or prioritize an acquisition opportunity against other current or future opportunities, but instead serves to evaluate each opportunity on its own merits and in the context of the timing of the opportunity, the availability of funding, the merits, and in the context of the needs or desires of the seller, coordination with other agencies and partners, the threat of loss of an important site to development, or the opportunity to take advantage of favorable real estate market conditions. So today we're going to do that deeper dive into how acquisition criteria applied using 4 projects as case studies, 2 of which have closed escrow and were acquired earlier this year, 1 of which is on track to close escrow at the end of this month. And then a 4th, and this is the one I will spend the most time on, which is an acquisition opportunity that had a tremendous amount of effort in negotiation, but also in vetting and in analyzing whether it was an opportunity that we'd want to pursue. And at the end of the day, the decision was made not to pursue that one. So I want to spend a little bit more time with that. So we will frame an understanding of the criteria with these key questions in mind. 1, are the conditions or circumstances surrounding the acquisition opportunity compelling enough for us to act? In other words, what do we potentially lose if we don't act? And then secondly, do we have the means both to acquire the property, to pull the deal together and marshal the resources it'll take to have a successful acquisition, but also do we have the means to manage the property sustainably over the long term? And this is part of the discipline that we're applying more to looking at land acquisition opportunities, and that was also discussed in the April 25th study session. And then in pursuing any land acquisition opportunity, we have process, of course, that allows us to answer these questions. And this process includes using internal and external resources, doing our due diligence, and of course, getting direction from the board and the board taking action. And we will touch on process. I will touch on process with each of these case studies. And then finally, today's presentation is a preview of next year, when staff will be bringing to the board for consideration and adoption a formal policy for evaluating land acquisition opportunities, including acquisition criteria. And this would be part of work on developing a regional parks acquisition plan in conjunction with development of the new district plan. So that will be a lot of work embarking on next year with staff and with the board. So application of criteria to case studies. I'm going to just quickly review what was presented on April 25th at the study session as to process. So we have what we call the land acquisition project continuum, starting from identifying the opportunity, negotiating, evaluating, that's where the criteria come in, authorizations from the board, funding it, and then closing of escrow and handing off to operations. And what we presented, what staff presented on April 25th was 3 stages to that vetting and evaluation process. I'm just going to quickly go through these. So there's the initial assessment that's done at the staff level that also involves pulling in the board member whose ward the opportunity is in and having those conversations, letting them know that that's an opportunity. Stage 2, we're going doing a deeper dive. So we've we've made the initial decision to pursue it, which means we're probably going to be getting an appraisal. And during the time the appraisal is prepared, we're doing this deeper dive into the opportunity, again, involving pulling in the necessary staff from the different departments and divisions as part of that process. That stage 2 leads to bringing this opportunity to the full board in closed session, presenting the opportunity and getting authorization to make a purchase offer. And then stage 3 is we now have we have the property under contract. We typically would have an option period. And within that period, we're doing additional formal due diligence. We're also working on fundraising if there's opportunity there to garner outside funding. And then that leads to coming back to the board with a presentation on the opportunity, the acquisition evaluation that touches on all those criteria, and then board authorization to proceed with the acquisition. So we presented 9 acquisition criteria at the April 25th study session. And just to go through those briefly, the first one, providing geographic or community equity. And this does go at the top of the list. And it's something that we strive to focus our energies on and when those opportunities arise. 2 is protecting natural and cultural resources. 3, expanding public access. 4, addressing operational needs. And this is where it may not be an acquisition that's going to lead to public recreational opportunity or to protect a resource. But I guess an example would be if there's a site for a new corporation yard that operations could use to replace one or to expand the capability to serve park or park area. 5, furthering climate preparedness, and that's part and parcel of course, protecting natural resources. 6, building on previous investments, and this is unique to land acquisition opportunities where we are looking prospectively and retrospectively on what's our program here. Where does this opportunity sit in relation to larger initiatives we may have to conserve landscapes or to provide corridors for recreational trail use or what have you. 7, leveraging with partnerships. So partnerships means both, well, it means everything. It runs the gamut from advocacy, legislative support, funding support, outside funding opportunities. So that's a big part of this leveraging with partnerships. 8 is responding to threat of loss. And so that's looking at the opportunity in context of whether if we don't act, is the resource going to go away? Is there a compelling case for conserving the land? But also, is the acquisition feasible at this time? And is there any alternatives to fee acquisition that will protect the resource or secure the desired recreational trail access, for example? And possibilities could include, is this an opportunity to get a developer dedication? We are very effective at lining up those opportunities in conjunction with our advanced planning folks. Also, acquiring easement or negotiating a lease or a license or other use agreement. These are other possibilities, other alternatives to outright acquisition of the property. And then finally, the last criterion is operational sustainability. And that again gets to the question of whether we have the means to take this property on and to manage it in the immediate term, but also over the longer term, whether it's going to be a land bank property or it's going to be developed eventually for public access. And so we'll get into the 4 case studies now, but just a reminder that in all of this work and all pursuing all these acquisition opportunities, it's almost always opportunity driven. So we have an eye towards looking at what the opportunity is as against these 9 criteria. So the first one, oh, actually, I have this slide too. So this is a recap of what was presented in the April 25th study session, and it's these 3. It's in the packet that you have. So it's the 3 overarching considerations for looking at land acquisition opportunities. And that first is the specific public benefit and utility that the acquisition opportunity would provide in alignment with the park district's vision and delivery of its mission. And the criteria that respond to that overarching consideration are the first 5. The next consideration is the strategic importance of the acquisition opportunity in terms of availability, timing, funding, partnership opportunities, and/or threat of loss. And that's what we're going to focus on primarily in this presentation. Criteria 6, 7, and 8 address that consideration. And then lastly, the anticipated operational needs and costs that be associated with the acquisition, and including an identification of any operational constraints. And that gets into sustainability over the long term. And that's that final criterion 9. So with that, the first case study I want to present is the Finley Road Ranch acquisition. That property is located on the south flank of Mount Diablo State Park. And just to quickly review the benefits from that acquisition, which we closed earlier this year. It's a capstone acquisition, we're calling it, to a long history of conservation efforts in that Riggs Canyon area. So that goes to, well, we'll review which criterion that hits. It preserves habitat on a landscape scale, 768 acres, I believe. It provides a link for a regional trail, the Tassajara Creek Regional Trail. That's a critical gap that we're going to be able to close with that acquisition. Also has potential for a recreational trail development internally within the property itself. And then kind of on a much kind of larger scale, it will form part of what we're calling a green wall protected open space to protect Tassajara Valley from encroaching development, urban development. So those were the compelling reasons to pursue that acquisition. The story as to our process and looking at this opportunity and the challenges of it. The biggest challenge was funding. This was not a cheap property, $11.4 million. So the focus of our efforts in terms of process was to reach out and see if we had partnerships, funding partnerships. So we had a partner locally with Save Mount Diablo, who had partnered with us over the years on assembling Morgan Territory Regional Preserve and the Riggs Canyon area there, that also portions of which went to state parks. But Save Mount Diablo had been stalwart over all those decades, really, of that effort. So we were quickly combining our forces with Save Mount Diablo. Leveraging funding. So that required internal resources as well as external resources. Internally, we have our legislative affairs team. We have our grants program folks. And through that and our board members, we reached out and did advocacy work to get legislator support, as well as funding support from state agencies. Also, there was finance department expertise and knowledge in bond measure requirements and appropriation mechanisms, because this was we had to cobble together our own internal funding resources, and that required a good understanding of what our flexibility was in utilizing and having the board appropriating both Measure AA and Measure WW funding. So board involvement on this opportunity. So this started in July of 1997. So we go back that far when we first got board authorization to negotiate. So at the time, it wasn't opportunity to really pursue that, but that's how far back our interest in that property began. There was a total of 9 times that staff came to the board for direction and or authorization. And that culminated in March of this year with final authorization from the board to proceed with the acquisition. So let's look at the 9 criteria and how, I wouldn't say how any of these score, but do they hit on each of these criteria? So providing geographic or community equity, not really in this case. This property is a beautiful property. It doesn't provide access to communities that are in close proximity that have a deficit of park or open space. So not really there. Protecting natural and cultural resources, definitely. Expanding public access. Again, there's that opportunity to develop a trail network and close a gap in that Tassajara Creek Regional Trail. Addressing operational needs, doesn't serve that purpose. Furthering climate preparedness, yes. Building on previous investments, yes, again, because of all the work done in the previous decades to preserve that Ricks Canyon area. Leveraging with partnerships in a big way. Responding to the threat of loss, there again, yes. The ranch was on the market. And although it wouldn't be of threat to have a dense residential development, it could be chopped up into rural ranchettes, and that conservation opportunity would be lost. Operational sustainability, so that came out again out of our due diligence and looking at what would be involved in managing this property over time. And currently it's in land bank status, but there is a path to planning, designing, permitting, and opening in the future this property as part of our park system. The next one, and please stop if you have any questions, but bearing in mind that all 3 of these have been to the board and have been completed as projects. So I want to just kind of move quickly through these. So the next one is the Harvey Ranch acquisition and transfer to John Muir Land Trust. So this is located close by Las Trampas, open space, regional preserve, and then next to St. Mary's College. That was, I think, 120 acres. And these were the compelling reasons. This was a partnership with John Muir Land Trust, and it's long been on JMLT's radar. It was funded completely through private philanthropy on the part of JMLT. So the land trust provided all the funding for this acquisition. For the Park District, it advances our Measure WW goals to preserve open space and provide regional trail linkages. And as consideration for our role in this, the Park District acquired recreational and trail and conservation easements over the entirety of the property. So those are the compelling reasons. So in terms of process and marshaling resources, first and foremost, this was a phenomenal partnership opportunity because, again, we weren't, the Park District didn't have to come up with a dollar, and this was something that we could play a facilitator role in completing the acquisition. But for our ability to have our ability as a public agency, we have certain tools available to us that allows us to complete an acquisition that a private entity such as, say, Mount Diablo would not have been able to do by itself. So this was leveraged 100%, and that again required no Park District funding. At the end, we got both trail and conservation easements over the property. The internal resources included subject matter expertise. There was a legal counsel on both the Park District and also the seller, and John Muir Land Trust were heavily involved because it was a novel, somewhat complex transaction structure, having the Park District in the middle of that, between the seller and then transfer to John Muir Land Trust. The staff brought this item to the board on 3 occasions. This had a pretty short fuse. So this started in May of 2022. And by December of last year, we were bringing it to the board for final authorization. And then it closed actually earlier this year. So that's how did we do on the criteria? Again, not really a community equity or a geographic equity opportunity. Yes, protecting natural and cultural resources, expanding public access. Definitely, this property is in the middle of several intersecting regional trail that John Muir Land Trust will be working on developing within the property, addressing operational needs, not that kind of a opportunity. Yes, on furthering climate preparedness, building on previous investments in a big way, both ours and John Muir Land Trust's previous investments in that area, including adjacent property. Leveraging with partnerships, again, in a big way. Responding to threat of loss, not so much in that the Harvey Ranch was and is in a special planning zone for the town of Moraga, and it has an overlay that would prevent any kind of intense development or conversion to dense residential development. That wasn't really in the future for this property. So not really protecting from any threat of loss, but preserving and making this a future potential open space for public enjoyment. Operational sustainability, there again, there's no responsibility on the part of the Park District. It's not our property to manage, but it is our easements that overlay that ownership that ensure that the future for the property is one that is both conserved land and future recreational access opportunity. Christie Road Ranch acquisition. This is the one that the board just approved moving forward with the purchase. And so we anticipate closing by the end of this month. That property is, as you can see, located next to Rancho Pinole Regional Preserve, Rocket Hills Regional Park, across Highway 4, and other parklands in that vicinity as well. So compelling reasons on this one. Protects 538 acres of landscape scale open space along the Franklin Ridge corridor, where again there's been investment and years of work over time to both by John Muir Land Trust and by Park District to preserve Franklin Ridge. Preserves habitat, a mosaic of habitat, and then provides the potential for completing several regional trail linkages in that area. And open space landscape, both sides. Yeah, there's again, kind of a landscape scale. We can see how the map is really kind of going green in this area. So the story on this one, the process story on this one, firstly, again, a partnership again with John Muir Land Trust, in that this property has 99 acres of the 538 acres is subject to a conservation easement. John Muir Land Trust will be the holder of that conservation easement, so they have a role there, and that fits in nicely with their management of Fernandez Ranch adjacent to this property. Internal resources, in a really big way, this involved a lot of close coordination between land staff and what's now build our conservation lands program. And our team that comprises that conservation lands program. So that's from planning, it's from stewardship, also operations. Because of that, having to take a close look at managing the entire property, but also that 99 acres that be subject to the conservation easement. So this project had a very long timeline. We got authorization to negotiate back in 2008. And again, it wasn't ripe at that time, but in 2020, we entered into an option agreement with the seller. So from 2020 until just this last month, when we were ready to bring it, the staff was ready to bring this back to the board for final consideration. All that time, including having to extend the option period 8 or 9 times and come back to the board a total of 5 times over that period. That was required to work through all of the particulars of the mitigation documents that would go along with this acquisition and with that conservation easement area. So how do we do on the criteria? Again, not a opportunity for providing geographic or community equity, definitely protecting resources, public access, future opportunity for those trail linkages, operational needs, and not that. Yes, climate preparedness, building on previous investments. Again, many years of work in stitching together the Fernandez Ridge corridor, leveraging with partnerships, absolutely. Responding to the threat of loss. Yes, this property would have the potential for future ranchette development or more. So this was one that, and it was owned by a developer. So if it didn't go to the Park District, then it would just be out on the open market. Operational sustainability. So that, again, took a lot of analysis over the couple 3 years before we were ready to come back. Staff was ready to come back to the board and recommend this thing, this property for acquisition. I'll stop there just to see if there's any kind of questions about the business we've already done, the Park District, on these 3 acquisition opportunities. But then I'm going to go on to the one that the Cuello Machado property, and that's the one that we ultimately decided to not proceed. Any questions?
Questions, comments from board members? I guess, Mike, the only thing I would suggest, all of these criteria that we use, and I know this fits in somewhere, but it was my opinion in the old days, it used to just be, hey, there's a piece of property. It fills a critical gap where it connects to another park, or it provides a wildlife corridor. And that seems like you've done this. Those were the only, or not the only criteria, but it seems like they were the key criteria on these 3 properties. And I bet I could figure out how they fit into the 9.
Yes,
It's-
Director Waspy, good. It's a good observation, a question, if you will. And the criteria do more than just look at those 3 typical considerations. And bear in mind that the 3 examples that we're discussing here, these are all open space conservation opportunities. So if there are other opportunities to acquire trails, acquire land in more urban areas of our service area, and where these other criteria could come into play. But a point I wanted to make, and thank you, your question reminds me that, again, the first 5 criteria here all get to kind of what the way of doing business, right? We look at what an opportunity would serve on any of those first 5 criteria, but getting into the questions again, do we, what's the threat of loss? Like, what's the compelling reason to, beyond just on the face of it, what the value of this property is? There's a lot of quality open spaces, and we have to focus our resources on the ones that make the most sense, both in threat of loss. What is it that we're going to be saving? What if we don't act? And then again, that means test. Do we have the means actually to pull the deal together? And do we have the means to operate the property over time, to manage the property? So that's what the other criteria, the last 4 criteria, really address. And that's something that before was more of it wasn't so formalized as a checklist, if you will, that these questions be asked and answered for every acquisition opportunity. That makes sense? Okay.
I have a question as well. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so wait, can you go back to that slide just for a second, Mike? Yeah. Yeah, so I had a question about how these criteria are applied or prioritized. Can you remind me when you're applying this? I remember a chart, and maybe it was for something else. They were given different weight. Is that this list, or are these all applied equally?
Hi, Director Eccles, thank you for that question. This is a different list. So
Okay.
That what you're speaking of is the list of criteria developed for considering capital improvement projects.
Okay. Okay. So
On our parklands, on lands we already own, right? On our project work to develop our parks.
got it. Okay. So these the purpose of these is to really give sort of more thought. I mean, because you don't have to like hit all of the checks. So it's to really think through if a particular project meets all of these criteria. Is that the goal here?
Yeah, that's closer the way to think of it, as opposed to the capital projects criteria, which does a weighting in this and that kind of thing. With land acquisition opportunities and looking at these criteria, it's enough that just one of, if there's one compelling reason, and that's the value of this property, of this opportunity, is to protect critical habitat, natural resources, or it's an opportunity to expand public access, to provide a regional trail connection, or it's just addressing an operational need, that site for the service yard. So it need not hit all these boxes. The first 5 criteria, it just needs to have a compelling reason that addresses at least one, and sometimes more of those criteria.
So
The rest
Mike,
of the other,
go ahead.
please.
Oh, that's
I was going
okay.
to say, I'll let you speak, Director Eccles.
Oh, no worries either way. So, yeah, well, I guess, yeah, I was just trying to understand better because one of the things that jumped out at me, obviously, these are 3 excellent projects and I would definitely, I did support acquisition in all of them. But I'm just wondering how we can bring more focus to the geographic or community equity acquisitions because they weren't at least the examples you picked, none of those were that criteria was not met. And so, I just would like to, this may not be something you can necessarily answer today, but I'd like to give more, thought to how can we tick that box in more of our acquisitions?
Yes, definitely. And again, I'll go back to the work we do in pursuing acquisition opportunities is just that, right? It's opportunity driven. So for the most part, we're responding to the opportunity when it arises. A property is available, it's going to be going on the market, or we can start those conversations with property owners. And but that's the hard work often, is to go after those equity opportunities. And that takes prospective work on behalf of staff and the board. And that's part of the hard work that I believe the Park District will be going through next year in developing the district plan and a regional parks acquisition plan that will be asking those questions about how can we focus our efforts to achieve these goals.
Great. Well, as you know, I certainly have a couple of great opportunities coming up in my ward, hopefully with Point Malate and even Albany. Now that Golden Gate Field is leaving. But anyway, and there are other opportunities also in Richmond, as you know, in North Richmond. So so good. Well, thank you. Thank you. That's helpful. That answers my question.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll go on to the last case study, and this is the proposed acquisition of the Coelho Machado family property. This is out at Byron Vernal Pools, and this is very close to the community of Byron, actually, off of Camino Diablo Road. It's about 520 acres, and you can. This doesn't zoom out very far, but the green is the Byron Vernal Pools Regional Preserve, and then across the Vasco Road is Vasco Hills Regional Preserve. So this one, firstly, it was an opportunity to protect habitat, and this would have been a partnership project with the East Contra Costa County Habitat Conservancy. So they were in there at the beginning with us on evaluating this opportunity. Tools. So we were looking at not acquiring the entire ranch, which included about 40 acres of agricultural crop lands and also a house. So we have the ability in our tool chest to do a carve out and leave that out of the proposed acquisition. So this is one that we first got authorization to negotiate in December of 2021. And it was a very long back and forth on the negotiation. It took about 2 years before we got to terms that were going to work out with the seller and with us. And during that time, of course, process, we were doing our due diligence. We were looking at how this property would fit into the big scheme of things. And that's where I want to go into more detail, because this was a lot of complexities associated with this property. So this is an image looking south from a hill on the north side of the property, looking southerly, and you see Frisk Creek there. So this is one of the resources that acquisition of this would have protected that segment of Frisk Creek. What you see, the scar there you see in the background is also on the property, and that's where there's a sand mining, part of the sand mining operation that's going on with G3, and we'll speak more to that. This is on the south side of the property looking northerly, Vasco Road you see there. And this is about 40 acres that is alkali soils habitat. So very rare and important habitat within the scheme of things, and for the Habitat Conservancy to try to protect if possible. And this is back on the north side of the property, close to its access off of Pino Diablo. This is the ranch road that lets onto the property and continues southerly up to the top of the hill there, and then drops down and goes underneath Vasco Road through the underpass there, and then eventually connects with our existing preserve lands. And so this is seen at the outset as a possible future regional trail connection that would also serve the community of Byron, because it would just be in their back door from Camino Diablo to have that possibility of a regional trail staging or access point. So these are all the reasons initially we're looking at it. And this map shows the purple dashed lines is showing the existing ranch road and how there'd be that potential connection into the remainder of our preserve. Okay, so what do we have going on here with this property? Well, we have the State Route 239 bypass project, which has been on the books, as all transportation projects are, for decades, but has some real movement over the last few years. And the blue lines show where what that route would look like, what the new infrastructure would look like. And here's the overlay of the property. So you can see that the bypass project would cut right through the property in two directions. Next, we have the Los Vaqueros expansion pipeline project. This is CC Contra Costa Water District's project. And this is a diagram showing the different alignments proposed for that pipeline. And here's the overlay of the subject property. So there again, you've got a public facility, a public infrastructure project going right through the property. And this is one that also has been on the books for many, many years, but has some real momentum in the last few years. And then finally, you have that G3, which operates the sand mining operation adjacent to the property. And you can see some of that on the lower left side there. And you can see actually on the property itself, there's some sand mining areas. And in fact, G3 has a lease for that sand mining on the southern 300 acres of the property. So yes, a lot of complexities with this property. And still it's incumbent on staff to look closer and to evaluate whether, okay, notwithstanding all of these complexities, is there still a compelling reason, why we should bring this forward to the board for consideration, why this property should be protected by the park district. Well, as to considering its utility for a potential future regional trail connection and one that could serve the community of Byron, what we learned much later, again, 2 years in negotiating this thing, and towards the end of that period, the transportation agency working on plans for State Route 239 came forth with their proposal for providing public recreational trails, bicycle and pedestrian trails as part of the project. And that wasn't really, that hadn't been snapped into focus at the beginning of our negotiations. But again, by the time we got to terms with the seller on a potential purchase and sale agreement, this came into place. So I don't have one that shows an overlay of the property, but it's there in the middle of that. And what this shows is that by dint of this state route project, the Park District is going to realize several of its master plan objectives with respect to regional trail connections, including connections that will take you out to Clifton Forebay and from there out to Bethany Reservoir, and also providing public trail access for the community of Byron. So here's a project that was going to accomplish all that and wouldn't require. That took off the list of compelling reasons for this acquisition opportunity is any kind of public trail benefit.
Quick question. Would the trails be operated by the state
Yes.
in this case?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. It's their project. So it would be part of their right-of-way corridor. These trails will, be off parallel to the highway route and also to the what we call them, the feeder roads that stem off of the highway. And also there, Park District staff is in discussions with the transportation agency staff on how they can revise and expand a little bit the public trails there so that we can get a connection to
Integrate.
Out to Armstrong Road, where we have a potential future access point into the preserve. So
Great.
this is again a photo of that alkali soils area. So here, and you can see in the background, upper right, that's an area of the property and the adjacent G3 owned property where the sand mining is happening. And this is just a kind of overlay of this map shows the deposits where the sand is and where they're going to be mining. And none of that activity is going to be happening in this alkali soils area. That's not the where the sand resources are. And so there isn't a threat that this alkali soils area is going to go away. It kind of protects itself. There's no real prospect for it ever to be disturbed or to be developed, which is a good thing. And this is you can see Frisk Creek at a different season, so it's mostly dry there, but it rises from Vasco Hills to the south there, and then it flows through our preserve lands and then across the subject property underneath Vasco Road, and then continues behind this image. But as part of the state route project, which is going to go right through all of this, it's the transportation agency is going to ensure that the aquatic resources, including Frisk Creek, those all have to be protected in this massive infrastructure project. So that's the transportation agency's business and responsibility. Doesn't require the Park District to take that on. So that was another thing. So given that we 2 years again, pretty much 2 years in the negotiations, involving a lot of assistance, a lot of subject matter expertise in both the negotiations and in really taking a hard look at this property. We had several meetings out on the property involving the assistant general manager, all 4 chiefs from the ASD division, and a lot of staff and operations folks. So taking a hard look at this over those 2 years. But at the end of the day, let's go through our list. So providing geographic or community equity. So I'm putting a check next to that, but I'm giving it that kind of buff color. So potentially yes, because the community of Byron is right there, and there isn't an obvious thing in our map. There isn't an obvious objective in our master plan that speaks to that community per se. If you look at the master plan map, this provided a potential opportunity where we could serve that community by providing access to regional trails. So that had that potential. Again, with the State Route 239 project, that's going to take care of addressing providing that opportunity for the community of Byron beyond that which this property could possibly provide by itself. Protecting natural and cultural resources, yes, it would do that. But again, there's going to be so much activity going on out there that the grassland resources, they're going to take their hit from the development of these projects, of these public infrastructure projects. But those agencies, again, it's incumbent on them to mitigate for those impacts and to, manage the site of those impacts. So that's going to be taken care of. Expanding public access, again, that's kind of a soft yes, because there was that potential to provide that for the community of Byron. This is not an operational needs acquisition. Further climate preparedness, absolutely. Building on previous investments, yes, in terms of all the work done in partnership with the HC Habitat Conservancy folks. And so, yes, on leveraging partnerships. Responding to threat of loss, there again, not really. I mean, the property is on the market, and with any luck, the sellers will be able to find a buyer. But there's really the property is zoned, and its entitlements are basically one legal lot. And the family tried to subdivide and to do a lot split, and that didn't that was rejected by the county. So they basically are just sitting on the one legal lot, the whole ranch, and that's what's on the market. So not a great threat of loss there. And operational sustainability, again, through all that vetting process over the 2 years, really getting a handle on just what would this mean for us were this to land in our lap if we acquired and we had to operate, especially as there's the sand mining lease is ongoing, and as these public infrastructure projects would get underway. So this was a difficult one for me and for the land acquisition team to let go of. We did a lot of work on this one, but we can't be in our foxhole. I mean, there's a lesson learned in this one. Is like, we can't just look at this in absence of what are the other again, back to the means tests, back to is there a threat of loss? And if we don't acquire this property, what does that mean? And then the means test of can we pull together the wherewithal, the funding? Yeah, we probably could. We would have that. We have the HCP partnership, but what would it mean for us to operate this property over time? And that it was just it was a bridge too far, I think. And so this is actually both I wouldn't call it it's not a failure story. It's actually a success story in terms of the process. And going back to Director Eccles' question, or understanding about these 9 criteria and how they work to kind of focus our process and focus our thinking on each of these opportunities. So I think that's what I wanted to leave you with.
All right, thanks, Mike. Thanks for the window on how the sausage is made. Any comments from board members? Elizabeth?
Just quickly. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. Really, really fascinating, and really appreciate it. I was just curious when you said that the alkaline land, almost protects itself. Is that mostly because of the zoning? You said that there was no sand that could be mined there, but then I wasn't clear like how it was further protected aside from that.
Thank you for that question. And in essence, the county, this is unincorporated, so any application to subdivide or put in a house or what have you, or to put it to some other use, would have to go through the county. Yes, there is the sand mining lease, and that was approved, by the county many years ago. And so they are allowed to mine those sand resources, but the regulatory environment, the regulatory overlays for a resource of that sort dictate that you're not going to see disturbance there. You're not going to see development there. I mean, the mitigation for that would be tremendous, to say the least. So that's what I mean when I say that it's not under threat, no foreseeable threat. It also doesn't add to the HCP Conservancy, the preserve area that we and the HCP Conservancy have been, working to assemble, but it's protected nonetheless.
Thank you. And thanks for the report. Very interesting.
Thanks. I would like to get back to the land acquisition policy that we started the conversation talking about. And I have a couple of thoughts that were triggered, and they relate back to my thoughts at our land session, I guess. What was that, several months ago?
April 25th, yes.
All right, time flies. One, I think and you referred to bringing that policy back, I guess after some input that we had at our land session. It would be helpful if we could juxtapose our current land acquisition policies. I think most of that exists in the master plan.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so just as a process item, when you bring us the new policy to consider, bring us the old, in a sense, so we can juxtapose it and look at it. I think I mentioned that during the land session. The other thing is, and I'm kind of piggybacking on Director Eccles' comments, which I took to reflect that many of us on the board believe that land acquisition is the most important thing we do. And it goes back to the issue we were discussing earlier about celebrating the district. Whenever we celebrate the district, the way we do it is by that time lapse of video that Brian Holt made of the expansion of the parklands owned by the district over the years. And that is always the starting place where we define the success of this park district. So in that vein, I continue to think there's going to need to be in that chart that you displayed very early in phase one, identifying the opportunities. There will need to be more than just one board director consulted. And that is the vehicle that we used to have where we'd meet in closed session and we would go over a list of active properties upon council's advice with the Brown Act issues, and be able to relay to each other our own thoughts and priorities in terms of land acquisitions within our ward. So we haven't had that opportunity since it didn't happen at that land session, and I continue to feel a need for it. And so I think there'll be some, by default, we're going to have some of that going on with master planning. But I know, Dennis, you and I have talked about wanting to get on each other's radars, properties within our respective wards that we ourselves prioritize, and it would take two of us to get them on the agenda. So, we could just do that, just ad hoc agendize active properties that we're looking at as any of us feel compelled to do. But I think in the process, there should be that vehicle. And I'm still very eager to talk to my colleagues about various properties. And I don't have that vehicle now, or I haven't this year. So that'll happen when the policy comes back to us. That will be inserted. I'm fairly confident. I just wanted to raise that in preparation for that.
Yes, thank you. And that is the opportunity for all of us going into next year with the planning initiative for the new district plan, which, you know, the themes and the goals that will come out of that exercise will heavily inform where we're going with the land acquisition part of our business, right? So
Yeah, you know, that will be the opportunity. You and I have shared, for instance, of a vision for Rodeo, right?
yes,
That's going to be that opportunity. But I'd love an earlier shot at it, you know. if
understood.
possible. Thank you, Michael. Very good presentation.
Yes, and I'll echo that. Thank you, Michael. It was very, very interesting. Thank you. And thanks for bringing your staff. It's good to see them.
Hey, the wallflowers, yes.
It's great to see them. Thank you for bringing them
We have
down.
a couple that have conflicts, otherwise they would be here too. So, but we've got Erdem and Sarah, and then of course there's Rachel and Philip as
We
well.
saw them sneak out.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But thank you. And thank you very much for your presentation. Oh, pardon me. We have a hand up in the audience. Do you have a question, Kelly? Comment?
Yeah, thank you. I have a lot of comments on this. He was talking about the Machado Coelho property and the toolbox over there. Well, very, very appropriate, apropos, because the Machado is an axe. It's a tool for cutting down trees and things, and then the wildlife aspects there. The Coelho is a rabbit. So Machado Coelho. Very good names there. And the Coelho operated the grazing lease at Mission Peak for many years, Mr. Coelho. But this pipeline, I'm not too concerned about that pipeline over there, because I don't see pipelines making much noise or producing much air pollution. But that 239 bypass is being, everyone just sits back and lets the freeways get built. This one, supposedly, if you read all those planning documents that you've been reading, you notice that they make a big deal out of serving the Byron Airport, as if serving Byron Airport is some kind of a pressing transportation need, and it needs a freeway, which is laughable. Last I checked, Byron Airport is not exactly a major transportation center. Then the connection between Brentwood and Mountain House is being proposed, is mainly the goal there, but both of these are kind of the suburban sprawl communities, and connecting them will just induce more urban sprawl all along the route of this freeway. Now, another example, then they talk about their transportation corridor project that they're going to do there with a bicycle pedestrian. Sounds great on paper, except if you look at what they're doing today, I mean, right this minute, I mean, this afternoon on State Route 84, that same California State Transportation Agency is building a freeway. Literally right this minute, they're connecting Livermore Pleasanton with Sonoma and Fremont over, near the San Antonio Reservoir, near the Vallecitos nuclear plant there, and nuclear center. It's not nuclear, yeah. And that their version of a bike trail there is a painted lane on the side of the road on the shoulder, not off the side of the road, on the shoulder, with a strip of paint separating the people from the 55-mile-an-hour traffic in the cars and the trucks. That is what they consider a bike pedestrian lane. So, I think we need to up our standards here everywhere, especially in the California Department of Transportation and in our counties, and everyone who is aiding and abetting and facilitating and complicit in freeway building needs to look at themselves and look at their fellow agencies and ask themselves, does this freeway really need to be built? And are we building real bike pedestrian trails? Or are we building fake bike pedestrian trails that are actually just, emergency road turnoffs on the emergency lanes on the side of the freeway? Thank you.
Thank you. There's nothing further. Thanks, Mike. Our next item is action items, which there are none. Do we have any announcements from anyone? Okay. Then we are adjourned. Thank you for being here.